Around this time last year, I took a look back at Sonic Adventure 1, a game I had never played before despite being a relatively big Sonic fan, and I really liked it. A lot of people adore the Adventure series, and the first one gave me an inkling of why. It's not the best Sonic game ever made by all means. It has some big issues with a lot of the content being focused on something I wouldn't characterize as Sonic-like gameplay, but despite the things I didn't like, I walked away fairly satisfied with my experiences. If you haven't yet, I highly encourage you to go and check out the two-parter I made of Sonic Adventure 1 last year. It's not really important, but I will form some of my bases on Sonic Adventure 2 from my experiences with the previous game. Ever since I finished that video, I've been urging to go back and continue this little trek, and today that time has finally come. All throughout the internet, there's a common consensus. The Adventure series is actually not that bad, although no one can agree which of the games are the better one. Personally, I've seen a lot of support for Sonic Adventure 2, with people citing the story being better, the gameplay being more refined, and the necessary fat being cut compared to the first one. Well, I'm excited. Why don't we just jump right in? I'll be playing the Steam version of SA2 for this one. It's already been pointed out a lot of times that this isn't necessarily the optimal version of the game, being a port of the Gamecube game, which is a port of the original Dreamcast version. If you for some reason have access to the Dreamcast release, that is probably the best way to play, though there are mods out there that can give you a comparable experience. But for now, let's just start up the game. The intro doesn't pack as much of a punch as in the prequel, though I much prefer this title screen. There's just something about hand-drawn art that speaks to me, and this is pretty good. The differences are pretty immediate. On top of a much cleaner interface, when you choose story, you're now only given two choices, hero or dark. There's no character select screen present, for better or for worse. There is no right answer here, so you can pick whichever you want, though personally I tend to go for the hero side first whenever the choice presents itself. We open to Sonic bursting out from a helicopter, flying high above the ground. He brings the door of the aircraft down with him and uses it as some of a asphalt board to traverse the first section of the level. City Escape, as it's called, is arguably the best opening level to a Sonic game ever. It establishes who Sonic is, how he controls, and what you can expect without any effort whatsoever, even to someone who doesn't know who Sonic is. Everything should be crystal clear after playing through just this one level. Sonic Adventure 1 took its time with creating a narrative. Well, at least a little bit more slowly than here. Sonic Adventure 2 just throws you right into the action, which, to be honest, works miles better. The controls feel a bit better too. You don't go flying to one side when running fast anymore if you slightly tilt the control stick. Or maybe it just feels that way because the collision detection for running into walls has been greatly improved. I think it's a mix of both. They also introduced grind rails here, which is new to the series and has become a staple ever since. It's easy to see why. Grinding is super fun. Well, most of the time at least. There's a rail switching mechanic here that you activate by tilting the control stick towards a rail going parallel to you and pressing the jump button. It's a neat idea in theory, but in reality it's not that well executed at all. If the rails are slightly curving or you're going somewhat fast when trying to switch rails, it will have catastrophic consequences. It's sort of a letdown because you feel really badass when it actually works, and although it's never really required to finish a stage, to maximize your ring count, you need to switch at times. As for Sonic, there really aren't that many new level gimmicks here. You just run from point A to point B and try to look as cool as possible while doing it. Of course, running isn't the only thing you'll be doing. There are also the odd boss battle here and there. At least they didn't start the game with one this time. After getting chased to the end of stage 1 by a massive truck, you're pitted against a hovercraft. It's nothing too hard, either wait for him to lower the body towards the ground or use these boxes to jump high enough to get off a homing attack early. I'm sure I hit him that time. I hope this isn't some kind of foreshadowing. Speaking of shadows, here's Shadow the Hedgehog. I am truly the master of segues. I think this is the first time we see Sonic acting uncharacteristically hot-headed. There's something about this hedgehog he really doesn't like. Well, apart from how he's the one that's been wreaking havoc in the city and is shifting all the blame to Sonic. Honestly though, how the hell can anyone mistake these two for each other? I can maybe excuse the general population, even though they have a pretty clear image of him readily available. But when even Sonic's friends can't distinguish them, you realize that this is just a poor plot point. I mean, he's jet black with red stripes, for Christ's sake. It can't be that hard. After this glowing example of bad cutscene pacing,
Chaos Control!
the focus immediately shifts over to Knuckles, who's in a standoff against a pair of boobs. I mean a bat. A bat. When Eggman suddenly appears and tries to steal the Master Emerald. Why exactly he's trying to steal it isn't clear, so let's just throw it into the bin of bad Sonic plot points. Knuckles gets the amazing idea to shatter the emerald into 1,000 pieces. What? And you know what that means. That's right. Treasure hunting stages. Like a lot of the rest of the game compared to SA1, these stages feel like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. On one hand, the addition of certain moves and improvements to the controls makes these stages more fun to play in, but on the other hand, why did they have to ruin the gem radar? It now only picks up 1 gem at a time, no matter how close you might be to a different one. Like here, where one of the shards were hidden right behind me when I started the level. Yet, the radar made no attempt to signal that that was the case. Most of these levels are actually pretty big, and only being able to accurately locate 1 gem at a time feels like a cheap way to artificially lengthen the game. The levels themselves aren't that bad. Most of the big ones can be kind of fun to traverse, but stages like Death Chamber really highlight just how unfun these levels can be. This is like just a huge maze. They try to give you a map of the place, but really it's just noise. There's a ton of secret rooms too, which can be accessed by digging through these walls, and there's a transition every time you try. And this thing took me over 15 minutes to complete. Oh, but why don't you just go online and look up where the keys are hidden? If only it was that easy, my friend. Every time you start one of these stages, or even die in one, the location of the treasures gets randomized into 3 of the predetermined locations throughout the level. Meaning if you die near one of the treasures, it's gone again when you wake back up. There are these hint screens to help you, but they're so vague and rarely give you a hint relating to the relevant locations you need to go to. Gem shard placements were randomized in SA1 too, but those levels were not only much smaller, but you also probably went through them with Sonic first, giving you somewhat of an idea at least of where they might try to hide an emerald piece. This all applies to Rouge's levels as well, since they have pretty much the exact same theme with some minor tweaks here and there, and a slightly different level layout at times. All in all, I think I actually do prefer these treasure hunting stages to the ones in Sonic Adventure 1. It's just such a shame though that these levels could have been so much more enjoyable if they just unlocked the gems radar. Like, it's such a weird design choice. Like I said, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And another perfect example of this are with the mech stages. Next up, we see Tails flying in to save Sonic from his incarceration at the gun facility known as Prison Island. Well, the actual rescue takes place on the frigate, but whatever. On his way, he sees Amy being attacked by Eggman and swoops down to save her, but not before he delivers the most painful monologue in the series up to this point. Maybe ever.
It's a secret military base that is reinforced and super strong. It's called Prison Island. I heard the news about it on satellite TV.
I just can't bear to listen to this. The forced exposition is too powerful for my ears. And so the first time you control Tails' mech is in a boss fight. Great idea, guys, just great idea. Well, Eggman's actually a bit of a pushover, so it's not that big of a deal, but come on people. At least give us something to prepare with, sheesh. Tails then proceeds with trying to find Sonic aboard the ship, and this is where the real meat of the mech stages come into play. What's kinda unique about SA2 is that you actually play as Eggman himself during the Dark story here. His gameplay is pretty much identical to Tails' though. They're both placed in mechs and go around shooting stuff for points. There was a similar concept in Adventure 1 with Gamma stages where you had to shoot enemies to get extra seconds so you would have time to get to the end of the stage. I really liked this gimmick, but Adventure 2 does away with the whole time attack thing, instead focusing on traversal and point collecting. To get a maximum of 2000 points, you need to target 11 enemies and let loose, destroying them all in one go. This isn't always possible, so most of the time you'll have to make do with what you have. It does feel amazingly satisfying to blast 11 enemies at once though. The targeting system feels a bit weird, it's like it's actively working against you sometimes. At certain points it felt like it was just skipping enemies for no good reason, and every time you press the button for targeting you shoot a bullet. This isn't only annoying because you'll probably end up shooting one of the enemies you wanted to target, but if you need to shoot a lot of shots in a row, like when you need to destroy boxes, the sound of the laser targeting system kind of blips, and if you thought listening to it in a single stretch of time was annoying, try having it spammed on and off for a while. There's also a part of a level where you need to avoid blowing up these explosive charges, or else some pillars will fall in your way, but not targeting these while also trying to target enemies are next to impossible. And if you want to untarget something, you need to wait for an unnecessarily long time for it to deactivate automatically. It feels like the game tries to emulate the Gamma stages, and in my opinion, that attempt falls flat on its face. While Gamma in SA1 was easy to control and could even be a bit fast at times, the mechs here feel sluggish, and even though they try to incorporate some platforming, they're really not suited to it at all. What bothers me most about these stages, I think, is that the Tails levels in SA1 were perfectly fine on their own. Maybe a bit excessive if played right after the Sonic stages, but this is not the kind of change I was looking for. Hell, Tails probably doesn't even need the mech. I mean, he's literally single-handedly lifting the entire thing, which had to weigh like, what, 500 kilos? He could probably just get out of the mech and simply push everything out of the way. I mean, it's cool that you can actually play as Eggman, and as far as I've researched, there weren't even going to be Tails stages in this game at all. He was simply added after fan outcry, and to be honest, the way the game is now, it would probably have been better if he was dropped entirely, which he is in the very next scene. Look, I have no idea what happens to the characters between levels here for the most part. They have a tendency to just disappear and reappear where they need to be. I guess it kinda makes sense with Knuckles since he's on an actual adventure searching for the Master Emerald shards, but for the rest of them, not so much. So even though Tails was the one heading to rescue Sonic, Amy is the one that actually gets it done. This is a wonderful continuation of her arc from Adventure 1, where she becomes more confident that she can do things on her own. I mean, she breaks into the facility, she steals the keycard, and she lets Sonic out. I actually really like her character here, even though we don't get to see her that much. Tails keeps his progress from the last game too, making him a much better character also, even though I don't like his levels. And so we're finally back with Sonic. This next level introduces what elevates the speed sections far beyond what they were in Adventure 1, the Lightspeed shoes. This upgrade allows you to soar along rows of rings at lightning speeds. This upgrade was present in the previous game, yeah, but here it's implemented so effortlessly that it feels completely natural. Unlike the first adventure game where you had to stop in place and charge up the Lightspeed dash via the spin dash, here you activate it by merely the press of a button and it's instant. The only bad thing about it is that it's been designated to the same button as the spin dash, bounce, and the somersault, which means that you might accidentally do a somersault or bounce instead of activating the Lightspeed dash. I never had any problem with the bounce while in midair, I believe, but I would often go into a somersault instead of a dash. After we reach the end of the frigate, we're suddenly dropped into a forest somehow. That's where we meet Shadow again and a fight ensues. As usual, these fights are a joke. Almost as much of a joke as these voice clips are.
I'm the coolest. Oh, I see. So you're darn. Not bad for an imposter.
Do you know who I am?
After the fight, it's revealed that the island is about to explode, so Sonic runs to find Tails and Amy. Here's the thing, though. If their whole goal was to escape the prison, then why the hell did they even go to the island? Whatever. Into the basket it goes. This is actually another fun level with some cool set pieces, like the vines you swing around trees on and such. After finishing, we get this cool cinematic where the entire thing just goes up in a ball of fire just as our heroes fly away in Tails' plane, and a Knuckles stage. I guess I do have somewhat of a problem with how this game doesn't let you choose which character you want to play as, unlike the first one, but it ditches that system in favor of trying to tell a more streamlined story. Personally, I'd rather have the Sonic Adventure 1 approach. However, I do recognize that the Sonic Adventure 2 method appeals to a lot of people too. I mean, the Knuckles stages are fine and all, but I'd really rather play as Sonic for a prolonged time. The last 2 levels were so much fun, but they went by so quickly. It rarely feels like you're allowed to really get going, you know? I mentioned an upgrade for Sonic earlier. The other characters gets upgrades too, and these are pretty much identical between Hero and Dark, except for the point at which they get them. In this level, Knuckles gets the Shovel Claws, which makes the hunt for gem shards a bit more complex. Not only are there certain points where you can dig through walls to get to other areas, but since the gem radar isn't very specific, finding buried shards can be somewhat of a pain. It could always be worse, I guess. In the Dreamcast version, you didn't even get this exclamation mark above your head when you were right on top of them. Anyways, like I was saying, every character has their own separate upgrades. Some being optional while others are required to finish the story. What I don't like about this approach is that there are some upgrades that are required for finishing the extra missions, and if you don't have them, you're kinda soft locked and need to exit and go find them in a different stage. Next up after Knuckles is a Tails stage again, but not before Eggman blows half the moon to smithereens. I kinda love this cutscene purely off the text scrolling past in the background of Eggman's video. So Eggman has been collecting Chaos Emeralds to power this huge interplanetary laser cannon, which should in no uncertain terms be confused with the Death Star from Star Wars, and to find him, Tails whips out this fake Chaos Emerald and says that he can locate the real ones by finding their wavelength via the fake one. Whatever. It's kind of obvious that they're in the space station, but I guess our heroes doesn't realize that's the case, and honestly, I'm willing to let that slide. What I'm not willing to let slide though, is that there's another Knuckles level right after this Tails one. Up until this point, there's been a pretty good mix of stages. There's been one Sonic stage followed by 2 non-Sonic stages followed by 2 Sonic stages. It's at this point though that you realize that this is the exception and not the norm. The only thing I have to say about Aquatic Mines is 1, this music is awesome, and 2, these dripping sound effects really didn't have to be there. Oh well, it's a relatively compact level, so it doesn't take too long to complete, though this water level mechanic wasn't good in Ocarina of Time, and it's still not good here. I kinda love how Knuckles randomly pops out from a manhole, and that this is the first the gang sees of him. Just the implications amuse me. Tails then speeds off after the president's limo in the tornado. Which president, you ask? I don't know. The important part is that Tails can't find the real emeralds if Eggman has taken them into space, which it has, by the way. I find that extremely hard to believe. But then again, does logic really apply to 7 magic emeralds with the power to do whatever is convenient for the plot? I didn't think so. When I saw this, I was like, oh god, not another slow mech stage again, but no. This time it's a kart racer. These types of minigames, if you will, was also present in Adventure 1, although here, this is the only one, and thank god, because this section is so mindless and boring. Honestly, why not make this into a speed stage for Sonic or something, instead of shoehorning in a kart racer with bad controls? That'd be much better, especially considering just how few speed stages there are. Because, well, after you catch up to the press, it's discovered that Eggman broadcasts himself from some pyramid out in the middle of the desert, and oh, come on! I just want to play as Sonic, god damn it! This level is especially bad too. There's this quicksand where if you fall in, you're immediately dead. The camera is so fucking bad at certain places, and some of the enemy placements is just downright unfair. Actually, that's something of a reoccurring thing in these mech stages. It does happen in the speed sections and treasure hunting sections too, but it's especially bad here. From stuff you can't see hurting you, to enemies being placed right behind doors, to drones flying and shooting you before you're given more than half a second to react. I guess they thought it was more okay here since the mechs have life gauges instead of relying on the classic ring system. Spoiler alert, it's not. Then, finally, a Sonic level, thank you! For a game named Sonic Adventure 2, you sure don't play a lot as Sonic. This game has the same problem as its predecessor. There's too much non-Sonic content, but here you don't even get to choose which character you play as when you want to play as them. And unlike Adventure 1, where most stages had something speed related to them, here you only have Sonic and Shadow. Most of the marketing material for SA2 were focused on the speed sections as far as I can tell, but why? All the characters have 5 regular levels each, which means that the speed stages only count for 1/3 of the game. I think that if they'd halved the action stages, I suppose, and replaced them with speed stages, this would have made for a much better game. Anyways, after finding the entrance, running through and unlocking the last door in the pyramid, the gang bumps a ride on a space shuttle after defeating a huge stone golem, and heads for the Space Colony Arc. After arriving, Tails goes off to destroy the power supply, Sonic runs off to place the fake emerald in the cannon mechanism in an attempt to destroy it from the inside, and Knuckles tries to reclaim the emerald shards that went flying when he literally crashed into an asteroid. Oh, and he also fights the pair of bats again, and oh my god, you can glide! Oh, and hey, if you were looking forward to the Sonic level, well, sorry to disappoint you, because Crazy Gadget is the worst speed level ever. When Sonic finally reaches the control room, Eggman broadcasts that he's captured Amy, so he needs to run all the way back again. The controls here sucks. The weird gravity makes the control sticks feel like they're smudging too far to one side at all times, and there's an unfair insta-kill early on, which you have no chance of knowing of beforehand. When Sonic gets back, he's immediately flung into space by Eggman. It was all a trap, and Tails even reveals that the emerald that he had was a fake all along.
Thought you could trick me with that fake emerald, didn't you?
So, how did you know it wasn't the real one?
Tails! Because you just told me, Fox Boy.
Tails defeats Eggman, and Sonic somehow uses Chaos Control to reappear in the space station. Looks like the next games are going to be made after all. Oh god. The next level is pretty fun, mostly since it involves a lot of grinding on rails. Just don't try to switch or you'll end up as a meteor. This whole theme of racing against a clock to stop a giant laser is really cool. The execution isn't too bad either, though the level can be a bit glitchy. I just really love the thought of grinding on the outside of a space station. And then our last obstacle is the Black Hedgehog. I'm gonna be honest here, I have no idea what I'm doing. I think you're supposed to let Shadow use Chaos Control to warp in front of you and then damage him with the Lightspeed Dash? Well, either way, we end up defeating him and successfully throwing the emerald into the cannon, destroying the thing, and with this short cutscene of Sonic smirking to the camera, that's it. We never really got any explanation for exactly why Shadow has gone along with Eggman's plans now, did we? I mean, for Eggman himself, it's pretty obvious that he just wants world domination, but Shadow is somewhat of an outlier. Well, I guess that's what the Dark Story mode is for. I'm gonna be frank. Dark mode is basically a repeat of the hero mode with some altered stages, although there are some new ones as well, a different order of which you complete them, and it's seen from the perspective of Eggman, Rouge, and Shadow. So, I was thinking we'd just quickly go over the story for the most part. Choosing the Dark Story sees us immediately being introduced to Eggman breaking into a gun facility in search of a secret weapon, which turns out to be the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this cutscene is really cool and I love the design of Shadow. The red on black with spikes and hover shoes really fits in a weird way. Yeah, he's kinda edgy looking, but I don't mind. You then fight the almost exact same boss as Sonic, just with some laser thing, I guess. Shadow is then all like, "I'll be waiting for you and the rest of the Chaos Emeralds in space!" And then walks off, and we have 2 more non-speed stages. To be fair, Rouge's stage is completely new and actually gives you some incentive to use the diving mechanic, which kinda sucks, by the way, but the stage itself isn't that bad. Eggman's stage, however, is riddled with camera problems, and when you combine that with insta-kill sand, it just becomes insufferable. Meanwhile, Shadow is being chased by the police, and the blinking red lights triggers a cutscene where he's sent off to Earth by a girl, seemingly on the verge of collapse. Shadow then swears he's going to exact revenge? Okay, I don't know about you, but nothing in that cutscene makes me feel that Maria had any ill intent toward the people on Earth. There wasn't any, burning sense of spite in her voice at all. To me, it felt just more compassionate, if anything. But then again, she is just about to keel over. Anyways, Shadow slides down the main cable of the bridge she's standing on, and finally, there's a speed stage. Hey, I've got a great idea, guys. How about we make you play as everyone but the main character you want to play as first? I really hope people chose the hero story first when they played this game. This stage is pretty cool. You race along a highway, traverse large gaps, and have an all-around good time. It's not as good as Sonic's first level, but it's pretty fun. It's darker in theme, and the track playing in the background doesn't have the same punch as Escape from the City. On that note, how the hell did they get Tony Harnell, the lead singer of one of the world's most popular glam rock bands, to do the vocals for a Sonic game? Crush 40 is back too with the main theme of the game, Live and Learn, which is probably in the top 3 Sonic songs to me, and is just outstanding and completely encapsulates Sonic in my opinion. The other music though, well, except for the Knuckles raps, which I was kinda iffy towards in the start, but warmed up to after listening to them a bit, well, it's not as memorable as other games in my opinion. I mean, they're still rockingly good tracks, it's just they feel a bit forgettable. Meanwhile, Eggman has made his way to Ark and is in the process of breaking into the central control room, where he meets Shadow again, who explains that this space station is equipped with a giant laser called the Eclipse Cannon, which has enough power to wipe out a planet? Look, I thought Eggman wanted world domination, not world disintegration. Shadow inserts an emerald, but the cannon still needs the power of all 7 of them to awaken to its full potential. So the gang plans a heist. Eggman plans to act as bait to lure the security bots away, as Rouge goes looking for the emeralds Gun have hidden on their prison ship. Meanwhile, Shadow is running around the island planting bombs. Why? Look, do I really have to bring out the trash bin again? As we know, Shadow encounters Sonic while running around on the island, and a fight ensues. Oh, I forgot to mention. If you quit the game and go back in, you'll get this short summary of what's been going on. The best part is when stuff like this happens.
I'm Shadow the Hedgehog, the one and only ultimate life form.
Shadow runs back to the ship to save Rouge, and they all teleport back to Ark. Okay, so Rouge is revealed to be a government spy and hacks into the computer on Ark, discovering a seemingly hidden fact about Shadow. She then sees that the hero gang have boarded the spaceship and decides to go looking for the last Master Emerald pieces. 2 things. 1, don't you think there's better things to be doing? Eggman has already blown up half the moon. Man, you suck at your job, lady. 2, how the flying fuck does she know that there are emerald pieces in space? Listen, I'm all for some variety, but when you shoehorn these levels in here this forcefully, it just does not feel right. At this point, the story becomes really erratic and all over the place. It feels like there's something missing in between scenes, or that they're slightly out of order at times. Eggman confronts Sonic and sends him out to space. Why exactly he has to go through a level to do that is anyone's guess though. Rouge is discovered by Shadow, who somehow knows she's a government spy now, and Rouge confronts him with a research paper on Project Shadow. I don't know why, but I just find this phrase here on the bottom so incredibly funny. Eyes only. Like, if not eyes, then what else is there you can use to read this? The confrontation is cut short though, as Shadow is sent to stop whoever is headed for the cannon and... another gravity-based level. It's not as bad as Sonic's, but I'm glad we didn't get Super Mario Galaxy until the Wii era if this is how it would have played. Of course, it's Sonic, as we already know, and I still don't know how to deal damage in this fight. So, Shadow wins. No. Wait, Sonic wins, right? We don't actually see Sonic truly get defeated per se. All we see is Eggman laughing hysterically in front of the R control panel, but for the sake of the cannon, no, not the laser one, Sonic needs to throw the emerald into the Eclipse cannon, right? That's why this is kind of a weird fight to even have. It's nice to be able to experience the villain side in a video game for once, but honestly, the only important parts were the ones explaining Shadow, and that could have easily been done in the hero arc. I guess it was kinda cool to see Sonic defeat that golem in the pyramid, but that's like the only memorable moment I can think of from the top of my head. The fun's not over yet though. When you complete both stories, you unlock Last, which is a weird moral disposition to be in. This story picks up right after Eggman inserted the last Chaos Emerald. Instead of the cannon instantly charging its laser, a clip of his grandfather, or the Grand Eggfather if you will, Dr. Gerald Robotnik starts playing. Apparently the people that commissioned the research that took place on Ark, which was to create the ultimate lifeform, one day stormed the place and killed everyone on it. The video is seemingly taken as he's on death row, just about to get shot, and in it he explains that the space station will go into freefall, and when it hits Earth the entire planet will be obliterated. Oops. Shadow has known about this from the start, of course, and was just stringing Eggman along in order to exact his revenge. Rouge finds Dr. Gerald's journal, which explains even more, and one of the important plot points is that to start this process, someone needs to awaken Shadow, whose memories he's altered to spur him into action. I like how the game tries to spin it in a way that Dr. Gerald altered his memory, when in reality, it seems like the doofus just remembered it wrong. I do really like the idea of the last story, with everyone teaming up and working together to not only save themselves, but also the world. You alternate between all the different characters here, and everyone does their part with their own distinct playstyle. It's not bad. I mean, there are certain parts that are less than good, and the fact that you have to do it all over again if you die is sort of annoying, but what comes after makes this entire thing seem like child's play. Amy reminds Shadow of Maria's real goodbye message, and so he rushes off to help the rest. Just in time too, because just as Knuckles and Sonic reaches the inner depths of the space station, a huge lizard-like monster materializes out of thin air. This fight is horrible. These dark energy spheres feels like they home in on you without fail. They do give you ample time to pick your rings back up though, and grinding this rail up and homing attacking the orb on its back feels satisfying enough. Halfway into the fight, the lizard starts to summon orbs you need to homing attack to reach the top, and these are not playing nice with the auto aim. This boss is a shit show, and easily the worst in the game, but not by far. After defeating it, Sonic and Knuckles uses the Master Emerald to stabilize the Chaos Emeralds, which prompts the lizard to teleport out and attach itself to the Eclipse Cannon. This is where we get the infamous, "Is that what Chaos Control is?" Okay, so I mentioned modding earlier. The mod community for SA2 is surprisingly active. There's a ton of mods, from model replacements to gameplay changes to straight up remixes of the game. What I want to highlight though is the Japanese subtitle translation by Windy. You can change the spoken language to Japanese if you want to, but the game still uses the English subs from the dub. This mod replaces those subtitles with correctly translated ones straight from the Japanese dialogue. It gives you a little bit of a better understanding of the plot, but not by much. The main reason to install this is that you get to avoid the cheesiest out-of-place lines. So, to completely stop the descent of the station, Sonic and Shadow transform into Super Sonic and Super Shadow respectively, and fly out into space and wage battle against the giant lizard. This is the fight I was referring to when I said, but not by far. Say what you will about the perfect chaos fight in SA1, but at least that one actually worked right. I can't count how many times I've hit the weak spot directly without anything happening but me getting pushed back. You have a limited amount of rings for this too, so you're encouraged to switch between Sonic and Shadow whenever you get low. But to do that, you need to get past the lizard for some reason. Like, it's literally harder to switch than it is to damage this thing. Since not only do you have to avoid these same obstacles that pushes you an ungodly amount of space back where you came from, but you also have to fly past him. Like, what the fuck? There were some times I changed without meaning to too, which resulted in the other character not having had enough time to collect more than a couple of rings, thus dying instantly. At least the song is good. For a final hurrah, our hero's Chaos controls arc back up into space with Shadow using all his power, not teleporting himself as a result, and falls to Earth. Presumably dead. Wait, hang on. Does that mean... Ah, crap, it's still there. Ugh. So, yeah, Sonic Adventure 2. An okay game with a horrible aftertaste. It's too bad it got this way. Like, I feel the potential is there, but all the unfocused direction with the switching between characters just really puts a hamper on the experience for me. Like I said earlier, this game would probably have been better if they cut half of the other character stages and replaced them with speed stages. A bit of variety is good, and some of the Knuckles and Rouge levels, for example, aren't half bad. However, when they started shoehorning in these uninteresting locales and plot points, I just started to lose all interest. The speed stages are really good though, which is why it's so disappointing that they only encompass a third of the game. I had tons of fun replaying the Sonic and Shadow stages to clear the other missions, and the hard versions were a nice surprise. The other characters' stages though, not so much. I really don't understand how some people hold Sonic Adventure 2 in such high regard. Like, even the notion of it being better than the first game seems ridiculous to me. There's so many things Adventure 2 tries to do better than 1, but it falls flat on its face with most of them. The pacing, the story, the mechs, even the bosses in 1 were better in my opinion. Even worse, how people hold the Adventure series as a whole in a higher regard than later games will forever be a mystery to me. Oh yeah, the Chow Garden, right? Yeah, I didn't bother with that.